Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Kirsi Bhasin. Kirsi is a former corporate employee who became a certified health coach after collapsing from exhaustion. She's the author of Recharge, Find Joy, Boost Your Energy, Take Charge of Your Health. She is a health expert member of Dr. Oz's Share Care community of top-ranking health experts. She was invited to become a contributor to HuffPost and Thrive Global by Arianna Huffington herself. She partners with a variety of organizations from small startups to Fortune 100 companies like AIG and IBM, teaching their employees about self-care. So why is it that we can be so great at giving love, kindness, respect, and care to everyone else, yet we often find it so challenging to give it to ourselves? My guest, Kirsi Bhasin, is going to be sharing her story of why she was so driven to excel, what it caused, and what she did to change it. You're going to learn about slowing down, patience, and finding your own particular recipe to show yourself you matter, you're important, and you need self-care. Here's Kirsi. Okay, everybody, we have my friend Kirsi Bhasin with us today, and we're going to be talking all about self-care. And do you know why? Because we don't do nearly enough of it. So I brought in the expert who's going to share everything she can all about self-care. Welcome, Kirsi.
Oh, thank you. Hi, it's great to be here.
Thank you so much. So we're glad you're here. So give us, first, let's get started. Why is that your topic?
Well, I think that's a great question. So this actually comes from my own personal story. So back in the day, before I started getting into self-care and to health and well-being, I used to be in the corporate world. So I was what I would call like the Energizer rabbit. I just kept going and going. So at the time, I was working for a leading global company. I had 3 roles at the same time, and 2 of them were international. So for one, I was traveling to another country every week. And the second one, I was traveling about every 2 to 3 months. So there were times when I was literally triple booked in 3 different countries at the same time. And in the beginning, I thought, well, this is just what I have to do. This is what it takes to, move up in my career, and that's what I need to do. And I didn't think much of it. So I kept going and going until about a couple years later, I was in the middle of a conversation. It was midday. And the next thing I know, I'm on the floor. Wow. I just collapsed. And that was my wake-up call. I realized what I'm doing, the way I'm living my life, what I'm doing to myself is not working. I had collapsed from exhaustion.
And it reminds me so much of, I remember reading in Arianna Huffington's book, how she collapsed and hit her head on her desk, yeah, right? And fell to the floor. And it sounds like this is what we do. Why is it that we push ourselves to this point of exhaustion?
Well, that really was the issue with me. It was really coming down to a matter of self-care, but going deeper than what I see people look at as, or like think of it as. It's not just about pampering yourself and indulging in what you think is good for you. I did that. I was doing that. I thought I was doing good to my body. I was going to the gym on a regular basis. I was trying to eat healthy. I was reading all these health magazines thinking that I know the latest and greatest, right? But it just wasn't there. I mean, I had to go deeper. And that's what I think self-care really is. It goes deeper into understanding who we are and embracing ourselves, loving ourselves for every part of us.
And I love that you said that about loving ourselves, because sometimes now I don't know if this is the case with you, and you can let me know. So often we drive ourselves because there is like a lack of self-love. So it's almost like, well, I have to prove how worthy and deserving I am. I have to prove how good I am. I have to validate to myself and everybody else that I'm worthy and deserving and lovable and all those things. Was that was the case for you?
Yes, you totally hit it on the nail on the head, because that was what was driving me. I had to be perfect. I had to excel at work. I had to, not just at work, but well beyond that, with my relationships, with my family, with my hobbies, everything. It had to look perfect on the outside, but inside, I just wasn't feeling it. It just didn't add too much. It was just leaving me drained and more exhausted and more of a failure in my eyes. Like it just wasn't enough. And like you said, it all comes back to really loving yourself and knowing I am good enough.
You know, it's a really hard thing too, because it's one thing if we have a habit that we know is really harmful and we say, okay, listen, I'm making a choice to do this. I know it's not good for me. But when we're doing something like work, right? You're doing what you think you're supposed to do. So it's a hard thing to say, well, here I am pushing myself in this way, but it's working against me. Right? It's almost like if you were drinking or taking drugs, like it's pretty obvious, you know, you're doing that and it's really going to cause some massive damage. And I think that so many of us don't realize that we're using so often work in that same way. I see it where we're using work to, I know that was my, you know, method of mass distraction, to numb, avoid, distract myself from something we're unwilling to feel or face. So we do this because we're good at it. We get validation from it. It makes us feel like, oh, look how good I am, but it's not without a price.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to my story. I've told it many, many times, and with the different organizations that I've worked with, and primarily employees that are either going through something similar or even at the very point that I was at when just before my collapse happened, where it's about, to me, slowing down.
Yeah.
And that would really be one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give to people. Even now, I mean, people may think, you could think that, yes, we're in a pandemic, things are slowing down by default, but I don't think that mentality has slowed down of us needing to slow down. We just keep coming up with more stuff that we think we need to do and that we want to do as well. We try to cram in so much into our day, and just the beauty of it. And I think the satisfaction of doing deep self-care is knowing that you can pull back sometimes and just be.
Now, I'm going to bring this up because I know this was the case with me forever, for so long. If I wasn't being productive, and I grew up this way, so this was the belief system that I had to absolutely rewire. If I wasn't being productive, I was lazy. And the guilt I felt if I wasn't working, if I wasn't producing, if I wasn't, you know, accomplishing something, really was just the driving force behind it so much. And it was absolutely exhausting. And then I cognitively, you know, intellectually, I knew, oh, you need some downtime, but I would feel so guilty taking some time off. And I imagine that I have a lot of listeners and people watching who may agree. What do you say to that person? That person who's like, I really want to, it sounds really good, but I just can't get past the guilt. I mean, I feel like I'm just such a bum. I feel so lazy.
Right. And I can relate to that too. I have been there. I'm very much like you. I still get feelings of that. I have to admit that I feel like I'm very much like you, that I feel like I need to be doing something to feel almost validated, to feel like I'm not lazy, because that bugs me. I feel guilty if I'm not doing, because I think it goes beyond that. It's also, it's like what you see around you, because you see so many people who are busy. People always complain, or I don't know if it's not a complaint necessarily, but they're always saying, I'm busy, busy, busy. Or like in my case, it was modeled in my family. My dad was a workaholic, and to the point where he even suffered from a massive stroke because of all that stress. And this happened just 6 months after I collapsed.
Wow.
You know, so I mean, there's obviously like a pattern here going on with my background. I'm sure some people could relate with that as well. And it's a good question that you pose. Well, what do you do if you do feel this guilt?
Yeah.
And my answer would be just start slow. I mean, you have to start somewhere. I'm not telling you have to take 30 minutes off, but even a minute of just being and taking that break, taking a pause and taking a nice deep breath and being with yourself. You don't have to validate yourself. You don't have to do anything. You are beautiful and perfect the way you are, and just be in that moment with yourself. As simple as it may sound, it is very profound, and it's a matter of building up on that. So do it every single day.
I love that you're saying even a minute, because that's doable. If we can't find a minute in our day, come on,
I mean, what's happening? And it's interesting. That was actually one of this whole guilt thing. I think I'm just wired that way. And it's a lifetime of rewiring, was one of the reasons why I was so drawn to journaling. With meditating, again, here I am, I'm just sitting here and nothing's happening. And somehow when I was journaling, I felt like, oh, stuff is happening, but I'm actually doing something. So maybe for the type AAAs like me, you want to do something that is helping the being, if that's something. So 1 minute. So you're saying 1 minute to breathe, to just be present?
I would even say just start being present in that moment. If you can just that would be, I think, the most ideal starting point. Without writing, you don't have to meditate. I mean, to me, meditation is what goes well beyond the typical definition that we have of meditation, or perception that we have to somehow like sit on a nice, really comfy cushion, have our legs crossed and just like chant. We don't have to do that. Or you don't have to do a guided meditation. You don't have to do any of that. There are so many ways to get into that relaxed state when it comes to meditation. All I'm asking you to do is just be still. That to me is also a form of meditation, but it's a very powerful form of meditation, because you're just, for lack of a better word, you're just being present for whatever comes and whatever you are feeling. Any feeling is good. It's fine. It's okay.
And it sounds like it's really a mindfulness practice. It's being present, just focusing in on what is it that you're experiencing in that moment without becoming attached.
Exactly. I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I like to use the word mindful, like kind of sparingly, because I know some people automatically go down this certain route thinking, oh, that's mindfulness. Okay, that's the way it is. And the father of mindfulness, John Kabat-Zinn, said there is no perfect way of being mindful. There's no perfect practice. There's no perfect mindful person. So I don't want to put people into thinking that they have to be in this box when it comes to mindfulness. But if that's a word that works for you and you embrace that, then that's a great way of putting it. But I like to think of it as just more than that. It's just being with yourself, being aware. And that's really kind of going back to mindfulness. That's what it is defined as, being present.
So how do you know if it's working? What, like in your experience? So you collapsed, and then what happened next? Did you realize, holy moly, I am just driving myself into the ground right here. I need to do something different. Like, take us through your journey and how you knew, the changes you needed to make.
Absolutely. So I think that's a good question. And I just want to say before I get into my journey, everyone's journey is going to be different. Okay. Mine is still an ongoing journey. This never ends, in my opinion. I'm just so thankful that the day I collapsed, I actually came across a meditation demo. And like I said, everyone can do their own form of meditation. I'm not saying there has to be one or the other, or even meditation per se. But I came across a demo that just was medicine to me. I can't put it any other way. It was so profound, the way it worked on me, that after listening to the demo, I called the company. I'm like, get this to me right away.
Do you remember the name of it?
This is something called Holosync.
Oh, sure.
So I used Holosync, and you may know a little bit about the background, the science of it. You're actually listening to brain wavelengths in that CD, or at the time it was a CD when I got it.
The 12 pack, right? It was a whole big thing. I had it. I know. I got it. It was wonderful.
It was.
Yeah.
It was such a lifesaver, at least for me, at that point in time. Because the problem too, I forgot to mention, was that I wasn't sleeping right. When I had all these issues at work, or the stress that kept piling on, I was not sleeping right. I had insomnia, and I would just kind of toss and turn all night. But this was the one thing that got me sleeping like a baby. And I woke up like I was reborn. It was incredible. So that worked for me really well. And I know from the people I've worked with and others that they say, okay, well, yeah, that is okay for me. But, they found something else that works even better for them. So like I said, it's always a little bit more individual. But that was my starting point. I just found that, and I was so grateful that it came, like, I don't even know how I came across it, but it just came, like, dropped into my lap. I used it. It worked great. But that was just the beginning. I mean, that was great to sort of get myself, like, kind of pick myself up again. But like
and
I said,
before you go on with that, just so I share it with everybody, holosync is it's the binaural beats. Is that what it is? Where it's like you're sort of doing things with your left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of your brain, and different
absolutely.
sounds.
So the way it works is that the brain wavelengths that you actually don't hear, but your brain is picking up on, is going through one hemisphere to the next. So it's connecting the brain in ways that it's never been connected before, which is very cool because in a way it makes your brain more efficient. And they say, you could be experiencing, ups and downs as you go through the process of going through these CVs or the levels. Like, it's not like every day is going to feel like a high, but it's just a matter of your brain is sort of like just becoming more like a well-oiled machine.
Beautiful. And I remember that series where it was like you have to do like the first one for a while, and then after a certain amount of time you go to the next one and the next one, the next one, which is one, it's great, and it definitely works for some people. I remember liking it. Maybe I just didn't stick with it long enough. I don't know. So okay, so that was something that was the first thing that really worked for you. What was the difference in how you felt from before you started with that, and what did you notice?
I was reborn. I just felt incredibly good. It was that game changing for me personally, even from just the demo. Because after listening to the demo, I could sleep 6 hours straight. That's what happened to me. That's amazing. It was just incredible. That's why when I called the company, I'm like, I need this right away. Can you expedite the CD? I need it now. So that was like the very first leg of the journey for me. But then I decided I need to know more and understand a little bit more about what's going on. Doctors didn't have answers for me. So they will typically say, at least back then, they said it's either your brain or your heart, and mine were fine. So I had to find answers for myself, and I decided then to enroll into health coaching school, which is what I did, just because it gave a little bit of a deeper or better understanding of a holistic approach, which spoke to me because I thought, well, obviously the gym and the workouts are not enough, or they're doing something, I don't know what. And, I was eating healthy, so I need to know more, like what's going on beneath the surface. So that then started another journey into understanding, well, what works for me in my body? Because every body is different. And that's what I came to understand and appreciate and learn more about.
You know what I love about this too? What I see so consistently is when we're on that path to healing, we search for our own recipe of what's going to work for us. And it is so different. It usually has the same major pieces, but someone's meditation is different than another person's, but meditation is huge. Someone's eating habits change, but what they were, what foods weren't resonating may be different. And what they've included, what they've added, is a little bit different. But it's like we create our own recipe. Were there certain foods that you just weren't tolerating well and you exchanged them for other ones?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So my journey with food has been a long one, and it started obviously back when I had these issues, and when I collapsed, I was eating a pretty standard American diet. I mean, not that I was eating like Special K every morning or something, not processed food, but I was eating gluten, I was eating dairy, I was eating a lot of these foods that I know can cause issues with people. And I didn't know that back in the day, because everywhere else people say it's fine. You can just eat those foods and they're not going to cause any problems. So I did take gluten out eventually from my diet. That was a process. It wasn't necessarily easy for me because I, eaten gluten ever since I can remember, necessarily not having a cookie here or there, or pizza, which was my favorite. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Or dairy. because I love ice cream. But I would just say this, that there's definitely ways around it. And once there are substitutes for these foods. And there are things that once you start eating cleaner, even cleaner than what I had been eating, because I ate a lot of salads before. I switched more to organic. I did more of like this local food and all that. That has helped. In the very last year or so, I've taken my eating to a completely different level, where I've had very profound like healing experiences physically, just from changing my diet even more. So I used to do paleo, it was hardcore paleo, but I discovered that a specific vegan diet, it's not even vegan actually, because I have honey, but a very 100% plant-based diet with low fat and certain other things, and gluten-free, dairy-free, obviously, has taken my health even like way up here. It's incredible.
I love your willingness to experiment, because so often we say, oh, paleo, that's what we should do. Or, oh, vegetarianism, that's what we should do. And everybody's body is different. Everybody's, we need different things. So we can try something and it could work so beautifully for one person and not work well for us at all. So it's great to your body knows, your body's going to tell you if it's working or if it's not. And it can start with just these simple changes. And then you see how how you feel, and then move more in one direction or the next. So you started with the holosync, and then you said that just changed your life. You're feeling so much better. Just getting sleep changes your whole life, right? And then from there, you started experimenting a little bit with food. And what was the difference you felt then? Was it more energy? Was it clarity? What did you feel?
Yeah, I think my brain fog started clearing up a bit more. Certainly, like I know that gluten definitely does that. It makes me sort of wonky. Like I get dizzy sometimes, even just having gluten and things like that. So it's more like a neurological sensation that I can get from it. Similar with dairy, I feel like I'm a little bit, it just never really quite agreed with me. So once I got those out, I did start feeling better. And then, like I said, now in the past year, now that I've changed that up even more, like especially going 100% plant-based, it's incredible. Like some symptoms I still have experienced brain fog, even though I was on a paleo diet, right? But now, because of the things that I'm incorporating into my diet, like the different fruits and things, I don't have brain fog anymore.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
Yeah, which is so great. And it's just such a wonderful reminder that everybody's body is different. And then, and also I want everybody to hear this, how it's incremental. It's one change leads to the next, leads to the next. So you noticed a difference. And what I also love about this, you're talking about self-care, and I think some of us think, well, self-care is getting our nails done or having a massage and those types of things, but making these changes in your diet, getting the sleep you need, doing the meditations, I mean, this is self-care. This is saying, hey, body, you're important enough that I want you to feel good. What do you need? and listening
absolutely.
and seeing what shows up. So you sound like so it led to greater clarity, and you're feeling better, and your brain fog is gone. So what other ways of self-care did you implement? Was there anything else that you started to do?
Yeah, and it wouldn't be as obvious necessarily, because I like to talk about things that are not necessarily as popular in our known media. So one of the things that I would definitely recommend people do, and I know this is something I still work on, is patience. Because everything that I did up until now, and it's still ongoing, requires patience. Like even making some, like in the beginning, especially because some of these dietary changes were radical to me. Just getting off gluten, just getting off dairy, because they didn't work for me. And I'm not saying everyone should. No, not at all. But I know that's what my body needed, and that's where I got the most benefit. So I had to overcome those cravings, those, like, in a way, kind of an addiction, like this urge, like, oh my God, I want the ice cream. Instead of thinking, well, you know, how am I really going to feel after this? And is this really what my body is going to soak up and love? Like, no, it's going to like spit it out and be like, yuck. Like, what are you doing to me? So it's a matter of understanding, like just what you said, like your needs versus your wants, because those are very two different things.
Oh, I love that. Needs versus wants. That's really powerful. So let's talk a little bit more about patience, because, you know, here, the community that is listening and watching is struggling, is either struggling to heal from a betrayal, or they've sort of resigned themselves to thinking, well, they've survived their experience. That's as good as it gets. Where does patience come into that? Where could patience really serve them?
It's everywhere. It's in part of that whole process, because to get from point A to point B to C to all the way down to Z or wherever it takes you, it's going to require patience, because that stuff, nothing happens in a day. Even though, of course, there are things that can happen within seconds, like we download an attachment. We're conditioned to think life is like this now. We just go onto the internet, we click one button, bam, the next day we have a package at our door, right? But things just don't always happen that way. And especially when it comes to us as physical beings, as animals, like you don't grow up in one day. Your body develops and grows from the time you're born to whenever you become an adult and beyond. I mean, your brain even continues to develop well into your 20s. So, I mean, you can't think of it as something that's going to happen or even a healing process. Like in my case, like just collapsing from exhaustion, this happened 10 years ago. But I'm still on this journey of going into deeper and deeper, like wellness. It's very important to me. So patience plays a huge role in being able to navigate that journey.
So patience is important. How do we cultivate more of it?
That's a great question. So this has actually been studied. We know that it's possible to cultivate more patience. And just to give you an idea of all the benefits of being more patient, it goes beyond just helping you achieve your goals, which actually patient people do better at achieving their goals. But even on a physical level and a mental level, patient people are usually less prone to depression, less prone to negative feelings, which helps along the way. Obviously, you want to keep yourself in a positive state of mind when you're going through all of this that you're going through, all the ups and the downs. And also what they found is that patient people usually put more effort into their goals. So they're even more satisfied at the end with their results. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the studies that they've done. So just going back to your question again about how to cultivate it. So there's been a study that they did with a group of people to cultivate more patience. And yes, type A people tend to be less patient. They have more health issues usually, like they have trouble sleeping, which was very much my case in the past. So I understand all type A people out there. But yeah, they're the ones who can benefit, I think, the most from when it comes to from cultivating more patience. So there are basically 4 things that you have to do to cultivate more patience. So the first thing is to become more aware of your own feelings and what triggered them. Second is controlling your feelings. The third is, surprise, surprise, meditation, which is what we talked about. And then fourthly, we have to cultivate more empathy or be more empathetic.
So that's to patience, have more patience.
Yes, to cultivate more patience.
Wow.
So what was really interesting is that with this group of people that they took to help them with their patience, in just 2 weeks of doing exercises around these 4 things, they became more patient. And they even had better interpersonal patience. So I think it's important to also cultivate patience, because you're not living a life all by yourself. There are other people, other groups and organizations you're interacting with. And I feel like in today's climate, we're just finding more to argue about. And I think patience can also help with that. Because it's about being patient with other people's points of view, with the way they think, what they do because it may not match ours, but it's important to also have that ability to be patient with them. Maybe you're never going to see eye to eye, and that's fine. But it also involves patience. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. And I remember Wayne Dyer, I just so miss him, but I remember him saying, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? You know, and sometimes it's just cultivating that patience could make us happy versus having to prove ourselves and, you know, exhaust ourselves getting to the answer first or making sure we're heard or whatever. I think that's a really good
Exactly.
good practice.
That's a great example of just maybe sitting back, listening to what the other person says. Let them be heard, because everybody in our world wants to be heard, no matter what their position is in life or on political, religious, whatever matters. Right? Yeah. Give them a chance to say what they want to say and be patient with that.
Yeah.
And then
just listen.
Yeah. It's so powerful.
Beautiful.
It's so powerful.
What do you want to make sure everybody knows as we wrap up?
Patience is very doable. And there is, before we end the conversation, there is a simple meditation that you can do. It's called loving kindness.
Oh, I love that.
If you're familiar with that, I'll just quickly go through it. So basically, you're just sitting in a comfortable position wherever you are, thinking this in 3 parts. So there's a certain pattern that you have to go through of thinking. And the first part of it is you're directing this thinking towards yourself. So you think, may I be happy? Or whatever, fill in the blank. May I be, fill in the blank. Could be happy, successful, healthy, whatever it is, right? The next part is going to be directed towards somebody else that you know, that you is a friend, family member, someone you love. So you're going to think that for them in this meditation. And then the third part is actually going to be for someone you do not like. And that can be the trickiest, because a lot of people don't readily want to give good thoughts about other people they don't like. And that's where this meditation is so beneficial, because you have to actually start believing that third part before you can finish it. So you go back to 1 and 2 enough times before you start feeling maybe just a little bit of that empathy or love or kindness towards a person that you don't like or don't appreciate.
Yeah, beautiful. And what I would recommend too is, if you're not ready to do that with your betrayer, everybody, do it with someone who cut you off on the highway or something like that. Start where you can. And I love that meditation. Thank you so much for sharing that. Where do we go to learn more about you?
Well, you can go to my website, which is rechargethebook.com. And there you can find more information about me.
Wonderful. Kirsi, you shared so much wisdom with us. Just such a wonderful reminder to practice more patience, create our own recipe for what's going to work for us, but just that it's a process, but a process that's so worth it, because the more we care for ourselves, the better we are, and the better we are for everybody. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I related so much to so many things that Kirsi shared. Did you? Another great reminder to treat ourselves more kindly. Why the heck is it so common not to? Stay in touch with Kirsi by going to kirsibhasin.com, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. We need to cultivate patience. In order to do that, 1, become more aware of your feelings. 2, learn how to better manage those feelings. 3, meditate. 4, the importance of empathy. I also love the idea of using the loving kindness meditation, and that's a great place to start. Of course, not giving yourself the self-care you need and deserve can lead to lots of cleanup, so take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz, which you can find at thepbtinstitute.com/quiz. And have you checked out the PBT Institute membership community? Imagine everything you'd ever need to become your physical, mental, emotional best. Community, support, certified coaches and practitioners that you could schedule time with, daily classes on all kinds of interesting topics, curated experts teaching advanced strategies in the areas of health, mindset, spirituality, personal development. Imagine the most friendly, welcoming, and supportive place to become your best. all online. Nothing like this exists, and I am so excited to welcome you. Go to thepbtinstitute.com/join to learn more. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time, and here's to your breakthrough.